Greetings once again, good folks, and yet another My Artsy Musings series. And this week we're with these couple of sessions that we're doing a farmscape and well, landscape in portrait fashion, as you can see, and this is a rutted farm track that you wouldn't drive pretty much anything other than a tractor along. I don't think it's so deeply rutted. And let me just get going while I'm talking to you. So describe this first. It's sort of a horizon line of sorts, and little Finn has come to say hello. Little Finn Kanini, hey, little farting Finn, hey. Yes, aren't you? Hey, little girl, little happy farting Finn. Yeah, hey, right. I don't know where Sage is, but they'll probably settle at my feet together eventually, as they always do. Yeah, so this is a dairy farm up in the Midlands. I've actually done a couple of pieces now featuring this particular location. Oh gosh, this horrible piece of charcoal. So this one is like, yeah, I have a fascination for, always have had a fascination for all things mechanical, tractors and what have you, and even the tracks that they leave behind. So this week we're working on that, and this is obviously this farm track has been inundated with rainfall and what have you, and then these tractors have come through here, farm vehicles, etc., have come through and really churned up this section of the track that runs around the perimeter of the fields, of the grazing grounds. So yeah, and that's what we're going to be working on this next couple of sessions. 2, maybe 3, I don't know, probably 2 though. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, so I just want to describe the I just need to be retired shortly. Right, that's better. It's a more reasonable kind of just want to get these perspective lines going first. So the road kind of travels up the side of the fence line here and then goes around the corner at the top. And I've got these great big furrows and what have you. So I just want to mark this all out with charcoal to begin with, and then I'm going to be using mostly color to work with the deeper shadows and what have you, my dark blues and whatever. So there's going to be quite a nice kind of discord of colors. The sort of dark blues and dark reds contrasted by the lighter greens and yellows and lighter blues, oranges and so on and so forth. So it's quite a medley of colors here, and I think that will lend itself to a rather interesting piece. So yeah, we're going to be lining up the these and not too heavily marked out, but these tracks, these tractor tires, I mean this is basically one trench of just this deep tread, if you will. But I'm not going to be marking them out too heavily. Hello, my Kit Kat. Goodness me, for a change. He's come to visit as well. Come and say hello. Okay, he's not keen to say hello. Alright then, don't then. It's alright, I'm not going to force you to do anything you don't want to do. Hey, my boy. Kit Kat. Oh, okay. So yeah, just very kind of faint lines at this point. And of course, all this is going to be, these dark strokes that I'm using now are going to be very much kind of colored over, etc., but they'll still be there. I'm just getting them positioned now at this point. Just to know, so as I know where they are. Yeah. Ready to say hello anytime, Kit Kat? You can say hello. Right, I think it's time for another charcoal, piece of charcoal here, and a big broad one. Let's hope it's not got too many knots in it. It's 1, 2, 3 by the looks of things, 4. Oh well, we just have to take it as it comes. Hey Kit Kat. Come and say that. Come and say that. Come. I'm just working very roughly at this point. I mean, almost childlike in my use of the charcoal stick. There's so much texture in this piece, as you can imagine, with this cast shadow, lots of creamy almost creamy mud, but there where it's in shadow, it's in deep blue. And of course, it being late afternoon, there's also that orangey light that's been cast. But this is just very early stages, rudimentary stuff. Yes, okay. Good. And there we reach our first little knot, I believe. So yes, it doesn't matter what I'm really doing in terms of technique here. I'm not bothered about technique. I'm more just working on composition, contrast, etc. at this point. I shall focus on technique a little bit later when I start filling in with my pastel work. As I said, there's so much texture going on in this piece. So especially with all the mud and the tracks and the tread marks and the whatnot. So this is just extra rudimentary. Can I help you, Sage? I mean, Finn? Can I really help you? No? You come to help me. Little Finn. And then there's basically blue sky up here as well. So right along the edge here we've got a fence, basically sticks and wire. And some shrubbery at the top. just to balance things out a little bit as well. Right. I always find these kind of offbeat concepts quite interesting, fascinating even, like mud and the patterns that vehicles make in mud, and how the light is, how it's caught by the light and shadow and what have you. So creating a specific pattern, and therefore a great deal of interest. There's quite a story going on there here, and that's what I love about these kinds of things, that you wouldn't normally try to capture. And this is something that is actually quite fascinating. You know, it's what vehicles, you know, what vehicles drive around here, and what, you know, I don't know. These kind of things might be silly to most, but how long has this little track been here for? How many times has it been used? How many vehicles have driven along this track, and how many times has it been graded? You know, kind of things just flash through my mind as I'm walking through these farmlands and pastures. Not something you see every day. Although the farmer would. This is definitely, very definitely serious 4x4 territory, this little spot anyway. And especially when it gets rainy, this must be almost impossible, even sometimes for a 4x4. This is deep in mud. I mean, these trenches are so deep, in places like even as deep as this page itself. And then the mud is displaced and pushed up into walls on either side. And yet there's a kind of a beauty about this little scene as well. And then we've got some wonderful bright green grass, a strip of grass at the top here, and maybe a little bit across the top edge of this piece, bright yellow, just to lend the contrast a little bit more. Makes this piece, and you'll see hopefully it makes this piece a little bit sort of racy. For tractors, racy. Yeah, there's this kind of a speedway thing, even though it's this treacherously slow and in its essence, but there's these sort of disappearing converging lines and what have you draw the eye quite rapidly into this piece, and then the story evolves, and I find that this is going to be quite an interesting piece for me for that reason, just how the eye will flit about, and because there's so much contrast and colours, hues, Huey Lewis in the News. And we've got a little squeak in my easel. Right, so I think is that I'm going to do some skyline now. So let's do that. Let us do that. Describe the sky. First, let's just put in some white down the bottom here. Right. A little bit of that to get going with. As you all know by now, I quite enjoy describing my African skies quite vividly, and not only using blue, as you might imagine, but sometimes magenta, but most certainly lilac, which is a mixture of blue and magenta. Cyan and magenta. Goodness me. And of course our pale blue, powdery blue. Hello, Finn. Have you come to help out again? And then blending it nicely with my fingers, 3 fingers, to create a nice, smooth and yet solid vignette. And I want to use my paintbrush or a SpongeBob tool because I don't want to take any of the pastel off the page, off the base. I just want to blend it in nicely and smoothly with a little help from some Finn. Okay. and then, oh, right at the back. Okay. Come on, Finn. Don't stop playing up there, please, my baby. There we go. There we go. Here's a good girl. Okay, my baby, you're actually getting in the way a little bit, even though I know what your meaning is. Oh, for goodness sake, stop it! You are actually getting on my nerves now, little girl. She doesn't as yet have the company of her sister, Sage, so she's getting distracted with things pertaining to me, what I'm doing. Right, that pretty well describes the sky as I want it for now. So that's that job done. Right. And now I can begin with a little bit of color, I think. And let's go with a darkish blue. Oh my word, I've got to scratch all this label off this thing. Fin. It's no fin. No, I don't want. No, come on. Word. Right, so darkish blue, fairly dark, sort of almost an indigo. Just to now go over this charcoal work that I've been doing, because the blue is going to form the basis of deep shadow. Oh my word, stop it, get off. So I'm going to use this semi-indigo, and then I'm going to be using a darker indigo as well. But for now, this is what I need. It's a fairly sharp shadow line that runs down here, so that the line is quite, I won't say crisp, I will say crisp, but I won't say very sharp, but it's not broken as it is in other areas, and that forms quite a nice bisecting line, if you want to, a kind of just that the eye picks up on. It kind of divides this piece a little bit. So you've got mostly then shadow around this area. And then sort of gradations lighter and lighter up this side. Interesting piece. Interesting in terms of its color and the contrast and what have you. So I hope to use my colors wisely. A bit of darker indigo here now. I think today, during this session, I shall only work with my blues, my hues of blues, Huey Lewis and the News, and then tomorrow, or during the next session, I shall be working more with the yellows, the greens, the oranges, and so on, bringing those colors in wonderful contrast and discord with, and reds of course as well, and the discord will actually bring about a great deal of the interest factor, along with a little bit more charcoal of course. Of course, working all the time in layers. This is very rudimentary base layer stuff that I'm working with here. And I'll also be introducing in order to, if you can imagine this deep trench created by a tractor tire or a couple of tractor tires on numerous occasions, deepening this rut further and further. The markings of the most recent tractor to have passed are apparent, and yet there's still that creamy earth that clay-like earth that forms this track. That the light also catches, and you can imagine it still being slightly moist, so that there's the moisture still will reflect the sky above. So you have to work these things out in terms of how you're seeing, what am I seeing? I'm not just seeing contrast, dark and light where the tracks are. I'm also going, well, what's the consistency of the soil here? Part of it on the top side of these ruts that has been the mud that's been displaced is drier. Where it's sitting most of the day in shadow because it's deep in under, there's moisture, perhaps a little bit of water collected at the bottom from recent rainfall. That's reflecting. What's it reflecting? Sky. So what's its color? It's going to be light blue. So even though there's dark shadow and darkened mud, of course the clay goes dark when it's wet, etc. In amongst that, there's also reflection. So one has to kind of just sit and ponder these things when beginning to set about an artwork. What is really going on? Feeling it, being there, sensing it. What do I see? How do I, what am I observing? Why am I seeing what I'm seeing? All those kinds of factors contribute towards actually putting together a story that unfolds almost subliminally. Almost subliminally, as I said. There's a story in the color. There's a story in the contrast. Many factors. And that's why I said there's a medley of colors in this piece, because there's so much really going on, even though it's a fairly simple, straightforward landscape type of artwork, and yet perhaps the colors tell a tale of the reflections and what have you, that sets the mind at ease, and so that the mind is able to interpret what one sees. At least that's my wish in this piece. So even though it's a simple and straightforward piece, there's a lot going on. And it might come together fairly rapidly. Then again, it might not. But and also technique that I'll be applying as well will also tell us a story in terms of the texture of the ground, the soil, the season, in terms of the rusty shrubs up the top there, a little bit of dark green, but on the skyline, all of these kinds of things all tell a little story, and I need to be mindful of that story as the artist, as the storyteller, or assistant storyteller. The artwork is what tells the actual story. Here I am just helping it along to give it its best shot. Right, now I'm going to be using my eraser a wee bit to kind of blend and soften. Let's just bring that down a bit there again. Yeah, so as I said, today is all about the blue. I'm using the flat of the eraser to blend with, because I want to really cover area here, cover the paper. I don't want to see too much paper underneath, just a wee bit, but I want to create this nice overall shadowy effect before I start with more of the sort of semi-detailed work. So I'm also going to be, of course, as you might imagine, it's my blues or my lilacs and these wonderful colors to also help with the detail. Because there's actually a lot, even though it's just there's these deeply rutted tread marks within this hollow, and those have got a fair amount of detail on them, but yet remaining subtle. So I'm keeping it within very close hues of blue, etc., from the lilac through to the the sort of pale blue and cyans, through to my darker indigos and ultramarine. And even later on I'm going to be introducing sort of more terracottas and what have you as well, sandy colors and all of that. So it's a potpourri of color here. It just makes up the whole image. So where there is shadow, I shall be using the blues predominantly, and contrasting against the lighter yellows and greens and so on as well, of the non-shadow areas, oranges, marigold, etc., etc. And I want to keep this piece very, very loose as well. Very loose, very descriptive, very imaginative, almost to the point of being abstract, right up to that, right up to the line, as far as I can possibly. This is why I shy away from too much detail. I don't want it to be photographic. I really don't. If I wanted it to be photographic, I would have stuck to I would have just kept the original, blown up the original pics that I had taken as reference. So, as I have been accustomed to doing of late, is, or recent months, is from reference imagery creating an A5 sized reference sketch, color sketch in pastel and charcoal, and there I just capture my composition, the areas of contrast, the colors used, etc., and almost like a reference palette, I work from that now towards this much larger piece. So And that I really enjoy. Sometimes I almost enjoy the A5 size piece more than the large one. But anyway. It is an interesting piece. For me, it's a very interesting piece because of the basic story. I mean, it's literally, as I said, it's finding something of interest in the mundane and describing that, telling it as a story. Might be mundane, but it is kind of captivating, at least to me, in many ways. What are you doing, little Finn? Hey, what are you getting up to there? And where is your little sister? What is she doing? Hey? What is she doing? You are otherwise engaged with mischief. No, just no. Finn, there is no, and then there is also no. Okay. Finn? She is stalking out. She loves these little wrappers that I've peeled off my pastels, and she seeks them out and then worries them to death and beyond. She's a very intense little kitten, this one. Very intense. She started out, at least when she came to me, she was a good 2 weeks younger than Sage. But even though she's a very soft-hearted little thing, this Finn, very, very loving and affectionate. She is a toughie of note, and she doesn't, when it comes to food, my word, she's like a little bulldozer. And she wants to angle after Sage's, as she quaffs her food down as fast as she possibly can, and then gets interested in Sage's food as well. Yeah, she's a little guts, little greedy guts, aren't you? And a strong little body. Sage is turning out to be more sort of delicate and lithe, I think. Little Finn is a tough little cookie, I can tell you that. Anyway, most of you aren't really interested in that, are you? What am I talking about? Right. So there's going to be a lot of line work in this, that's for sure. A lot of line work, a lot of blended color. A lot of texture. Finn, can you not go on there? Thank you as well. Come and lie down there. Come and lie at my feet like you always do. Yes, so once I start adding other colors now during the next session, this will really start to pop. Really start to tell a story. And of course, it'll slow down as well. So please, if you're new to my channel, and if you like what you're seeing, if you can handle my mental meanderings and what have you, all the goings on, then if you have any queries about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, etc., etc., please feel free to comment in the comment section. Ask whatever you want to ask. Say whatever you like to say. Do feel free on all times. And as I said, if you do like what you see, then please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you receive notification of future uploads, etc. Every week I'm posting up at least a couple of sessions, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4, depending on what I'm working with. My medium of choice, or mixed medium of choice, is, as you might have guessed, is charcoal and chalk pastel, or soft pastel as it's often referred to as well. I don't do oil pastels. Those I don't enjoy. I just don't enjoy their texture, and they don't work together very well with charcoal. Which what I found is that the charcoal has a similar consistency and makeup to pastel, to soft pastel or chalk pastel, and they work well and blend well together. So yeah, so that, and then on occasion, especially when I'm working with water, seascapes and what have you, I generally would introduce a little bit of acrylic paint as well, white usually, white nearly always, and of course I work with Conte as well, which is a softer, harder. There's my Conte crown, and I use that for a lot of line work, and yeah, so I usually use a mixture, a blend of those three mediums, and they work for me. I really enjoy using them together. I suppose it's just kind of unusual, perhaps. And yeah, kind of my unique offering, I suppose, in a way. I don't say that others don't use the same mixture of mediums, but I think my work is starting to come together in such a way that it becomes recognizable due to the nature of the medium that I'm using, that I'm employing. So there we have it. So it doesn't look like much at this point, not much at all, but during the next session it will start to really transform. And I may or may not complete this piece during tomorrow's session, because I've learnt from experience when I make these claims of, well, I'm going to complete it on a certain day or after a certain session, well, it doesn't often work out that way. I just follow my nose and allow the artwork to dictate to me when it's ready and what it's ready for. I don't like to force a time frame or anything else. I think that I am at the end of today's session, so I'm going to down tools. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's session, and I thank you for sustaining. Yeah, thanks for bearing with me, and I do hope you've enjoyed. So yes, as I said before, please, if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you receive notifications of any further uploads. So yeah, in the meantime, do take care, be good, be kind, be gentle, be caring, be loving, etc., etc. And I bid you oodles and doodles of toodles. And I shall see you again during the next session as we potentially complete this piece. So yeah, our nice little farmscape, landscape, trackscape, tractorscape, etc. Yeah, anyway, take care guys, see you again during the next session. Have a fantastic day ahead. Bye, and don't forget to doodle.